All righty. All right, I think I've figured this out. There's quite a lot of technology that happens with streaming live. So good morning. Good morning. I see that there is a few already here. Help me out as I'm still a little bit concerned, maybe even a little nervous if this is working out well through the live stream. So if you can see me and you can hear me here in the chat, just say, hey, Nicholas, we can see you, or I can see you, I can hear you. And we can continue with our session. But it's great to be back. I haven't been online in quite a while. There's been multiple happenings for me that has led me to be off the computer for a while. And I'm not upset at that at all. I mean, I think the word is Luddite. It's almost intentional. There's intentionality to becoming more of a Luddite for sure, just to not use technology. But it is helpful for things like this, and especially when people have questions. So get your questions ready. And I will be answering those soon, and I'll tell you how to do it. But yeah, just been on this hiatus, building our house on our farm, and you know, it's paying. What's the term there? Deliberately spending my time with my family, especially my little girl Faithful. So I know she's in the other room here. So hey, Leah, I see you. Thanks for telling me I see you and hear you. So very great. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. I've preloaded some questions from my online permaculture design course. And so that was kind of the catalyst, and that what set this off was we were doing the online permaculture design course live question and answer sessions. And basically what had happened was people were very okay with sorry if you hear my daughter in the other room, with opening us up to be public. So people were very much okay. So this is the first time we're doing it, and so hopefully this comes out very well. So okay, so I'm going to start with those questions, and if you have any comments, you can put them in the chat. And then also, if you have any questions that you want to say on this live Q&A, in the chat, what I'd like you to do, so I know that they're questions and not just comments, because there's not like a question area and then a comment area. Just put the capital letter Q before your comment or before your question. That way it'll trigger me and I can look through there and say, okay, hey, that's a question. So we'll go ahead and get started. First question comes from one of the students at the online permaculture design course. And the question is, I just watched session 2 of the pattern session, and it was mentioned that you can have a potato mandala or a corn mandala or an herb mandala. Are there any benefits to grouping or categorizing a mandala in this way? Are there any benefits of having multiple groups of plants? For example, rather than a potato mandala, have a mandala keyhole or a corn keyhole, etc. Okay, so that's a great question. And I think I've preloaded this question with an answer that is going to go above and beyond of what this questioner is asking. So let me share my screen and bring you guys into Photoshop. All right. So in the session on patterns, I go over what's called an infinity garden. I even speak about it here on this YouTube channel a little bit. If you go back and search for that, it wouldn't be a bad idea to just get kind of familiar. But I go into great detail and great depth in the permaculture design course. So what the questioner was talking about in general was like, okay, so this whole mandala of mandalas would be a garden, right? This could be a form of an infinity garden, but this is like, you know, one potato, so it would look something like this, right? So I say potatoes here, corn there. So we did herbs there, sweet potatoes, beans, which I'm almost completely sold that pole beans and corn should just automatically grow together no matter what. Say we had, oh, hello. Oh, you. Hi. Here, you want to say hi to everybody? Come over here, they can see you in this little thing right here. Wave, say hi. All right, we're teaching about mandala gardens. Do you have anything to say about mandala gardens?
Why is this hot? What is so hot?
You're so silly. I don't know what you just said. Okay, so here, let's teach about some mandala.
I had a bird.
Oh, you have a boogie? Nice.
Oh
my God, we need to get that. Excuse me, guys, while I take care of some dadly duties. Come here, Mikey. Hurry up. Come here. Be right back. Give me a second. All right, let's get back into it. It'll never stop, you know, as if you've had kids, you know, just being a daddy never stops, being a mama never stops. All right, so so this would be a mandala of mandalas, and they would all have something different here, right? So that's kind of where his question's coming from. It's like something that looks like this. However, this is just one way to do it. He did allude to the question, like, what if I had a mandala that looked like this? And it's just one garden. And this is all maybe that you could put on your landscape, like a front yard. And I'll show you some photos of what that looks like. And so this looks something like, you know, that is one grouping of plants, or say that potato, that's corn, and this is sweet potatoes, and that one's tomato, or this one's tomatoes, and you know, in et cetera, et cetera. So absolutely, you can do it like that. Now, what I want to intervene here is there's another way that he could have went about this. And say you can only have one keyhole, or you only had one mandala, but you're trying to grow multiple plants within the mandala, but you want more than just dedicating one keyhole bed to one plant. And if that's the case, then it would look something like this. So here's a dual mandala, right? So let's say over here, this is onions, and over here, this is garlic. And that's one way to put those plants in, right? And if we look at another way, here's 3 different types of plants. Now these go, these would be ideally if they were spatially oriented, meaning the ones in here, maybe these small ones, maybe these are radishes that grow really fast right here. And then you've got pole beans that grow right here, or even lettuce. Let's just say it's lettuce. And then back here, you've got corn. So the corn will be up high. Medium height would be the row in the middle. And then very small, you know, something, you know, onion, beet, radish, something like that can grow right there. So a 2-way, and then here's a 3-plant way to do it. And if we want to add another, you could put 4 plants in here, and it's more like a cross. So if I took a line, which I'll show you. All right, so we kind of did like this and like this. So we made a cross, and I mean, other than that, crosses are just always fantastic. Remind you of Jesus. But all right, so here's, you know, potatoes, corn, sweet potato, and herbs or something like this. So if you zoom back out and say you only had room for one keyhole bed, here's a multiple plant method for one keyhole. And then also if you had enough room to do an entire mandala, say this one has 6 garden beds in it, each one of these beds can have 2, 3, or 4 different types of plants in them. That is a great question. Okay, so let's take a look again, or look at the next question here. Okay, so this is a deep question, very short question, but it has to do with chickens. And chickens, if you're a permaculturist, by all means, at this point, realize the utility and amazingness of what's been called the original garbage disposal, the hen or the chicken. But, you know, it's almost a rite of passage. Like if you're going to take on, say, aquaponics, you're going to lose at least your first 2 schools of tilapia or your fish. It's because you're learning how to do it. It's almost the same thing with chickens. Now, I have had students and have met people who haven't lost chickens right up front, and that's amazing. And ideally, that's ideal. You want to aim for that. But at the same time, if you lose your first flock or 2 of chickens, don't get disheartened. I'm telling you this because it happens so often. Definitely pay attention to predator protection and also sickness. What if you have your chickens get sick? And one of the most often ailments that happens to chickens is what this question is. And the question is, what can I do if one of my chickens have coccidosis? Now that's a great question. It's good to know what to look for. And maybe that's what we should look at first, is what does coccidosis look like? And then I'm going to give you a way to go about this. So coccidosis. So it's a protozoa. So it's a little guy that gets into the intestine of a chicken and makes them very sick and can obviously lead to death. And there's all types of symptoms. You know, here's the life cycle of, if I'm looking at this correctly. So here's a chicken with coccidosis. You know, all right, there's just all types of problems when it comes to coccidosis. So here, let me open up something else, and I've kind of laid this out for you with some great teachings right here. Okay, so I put on an email to our email list not long ago, and I still haven't finished all of these spreadsheets and infographics, but we're working on it. So what you're looking at here is a common ailment sheet. This specific one is for chickens, right? So here's coccidosis, the one we're specifically talking about right here. Okay, so, but there's many. One of the easiest things you can do, you can ask a farm vet, and, you know, antibiotics or some type of pharmaceutical method like that, or maybe kill your chicken. That may be the deal. But most people in permaculture are going to want to know an alternative and potentially an herbal remedy. And so that's what this sheet is. It's specifically going over herbal remedies for these different ailments, and coccidosis is a big one. Coccidosis is a big one. And if you know how to do coccidosis, yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, okay, all right. Good. How is that in there? You getting a while? Right. I can in just a minute. Can you give me a second? No. Okay. Okay, so if you have coccidosis, the remedy to that, if you have coccidosis in one of your chickens, the remedy to that is a remedy for a lot of other ailments. So the typical cause is something like overcrowding or lack of green food. So any place that you have like factory farms for chickens, like a chicken battery, this is going to be a big problem. They typically give them antibiotics for it. Some of the symptoms is they have a very like drunk or faltering gait. Their comb is kind of anemic, mucus at the corners of the eyes, and just general disability. If you got little chicks, they produce blood-stained poop, and like a kind of a roached like back like this. So the remedy, and you can read it here, first is fast for 1 day with water only. So just 1 day, just complete water. Then give drops of a senna brew. Now I'm not going to go into what different herbal remedies are, like a brew or a oxymel or something like that, right? Different kind of herbal remedies. This is just what the herbal remedy is. So give drops of senna brew. So you want to soak like 1.5 pods and 1 dessert spoonful of water. Okay. And then so the adults get the entire dessert spoonful and the chicks get a teaspoon dose of that. Then you want to give 1 flaked clove per hen. You'll crush of garlic, 1 flake clove of garlic. So like an entire clove, and then flake it or crush that garlic for chicks, and use the same amount for chicks. I know it sounds unbelievable. And you want to do this, give them 1 flaked clove or crushed clove for 10 days. So this is called a garlic treatment. And then your diet following the fast should be a laxative diet. You might be wondering, what is a laxative diet? So anything like bran and molasses mashes with lots of greens, especially chickweed, groundsel, sow thistle, garden lettuce, and all of the cresses will work here. And you could even give a little bit of buttermilk. And I've mentioned here to give drops of warmed honey. Honey is like a energy booster, or obviously has all the other benefits to that honey does, but specifically for chickens, it can really give, for a short amount of time, like a very sick chicken, a good energy boost so that chicken can get up and eat and drink and whatnot. So always good to do that. That's a great question. And if you like these types of questions, on my email list that you can sign up to at schoolofpermaculture.com, I do have like a 5 or 6 series email that I'm writing just for these herbal remedies for, chickens, dogs, sheep, goats, and, cows, and horses. So I'll be sending that out pretty soon. It's a great question. All right. Here's a third question. Third question is, I can't decide if I want my roof rainwater to fill a swale or collect in a rain barrel. House is on a slope. East side was a dirt runoff. I terraced it and planted perennials. Currently, the front gutters feed a mini swale at the top of the terrace. Terrace zigzags down to a new contour level just before my future garden. The back connect via a gutter hose that runs all the way down to the hill to the spot where I see a big swale on contour before the garden. This is quite a long question. Issues are, I won't be able to plant trees on the swale on either side. I have giant oak trees just before them that shade a lot, plus the house shades afternoon. I think the swale is necessary, just can't decide if I want to connect the gutter hose to a barrel or let it feed the swale. Okay. So honestly, if I backed up on this question and said, because I'm not even sure if the swale is the right thing to do there because of the slope that it's on, and we don't want to cause a landslide, and it just depends on how slope it is. So it sounds like you've already decided on it. So I'm going to take the answer that I'm going to give based on your decision to go ahead and go with the swale, which I'm pro swale. So that's great as long as it fits. So there's no reason to have an either or for the rain barrel here or your rain catchment system. So have it go into the rain barrel, and then that will fill up rather quickly. You put 10,000 gallons there, probably fill up rather quickly. And then the overflow of your rain barrel or the overflow of your rainwater catchment system can then overflow into your swale, and then your swale obviously has an overflow system as well. So it's not an either or there. If I'm reading the question correctly, you can definitely do both. All right, so if you're just joining us or you have been here for a few minutes, what I've been doing is I've been reading, I've got four, I have one more to go. 4 preloaded questions from my online permaculture design course that I'm answering. And then after these 4, then it will be time for live Q&A. And just remember to ask a question in live Q&A, just put a capital Q right before your question. And that way I know it's a question and not just a comment or something you'd like to say. So if you do have a question, you can go ahead and load that now, or I'm going to open it up here in just a second for those. So here's the last of the preloaded questions. This is number 4 here in session 2 of the introduction on the permaculture design course. Sheet mulch gardening was covered and straw versus other materials were discussed. I'm curious if bamboo leaves and stalks could be used if it were dried out and no risk of spreading. It grows so fast, it seems like it could be a good source of organic matter. Though I don't know the density of the nutrients in the bamboo, maybe it's not as dense as straw or leaves from hardwood trees. Does anyone know or have experience with bamboo in this way? This is an excellent question, and I think should be taken more serious than maybe what's led on in this question, because the questioner is right. Bamboo creates so much organic matter. For us not to utilize that would be kind of silly. I think, in my opinion, for what it's worth, the paper industry completely be turned around by bamboo. Even the lumber industry, bamboo is a great building material. So would it be good for composting? Well, first and foremost, it's high in silica. And when it's dried out, it's carbon. That's what we're looking for, high carbon materials. The carbon material has other nutrients in it. That's great. Like this has a lot of silica. So absolutely. Let's look at some pros and cons. When you're using straw, just the same reason you use it for cob in construction, it weaves in between itself and other material, meaning that it becomes a monolithic thing. So when it's on a sheet mulch bed, it kind of weaves in itself and it won't blow away easy. Where leaves, on the other hand, and this goes for tree leaves as well, if you put them on the top layer, they will blow away. I can tell you from experience. So that would be the probably biggest problem with using bamboo leaves. Now, obviously, if you have bamboo stalks and you ran them through like a leaf shredder or wood chipper, that would still potentially give you that issue. They'd be a little bit heavier because the bamboo stalks are heavier. So it's a great idea to do, but your top layer, if it's windy during these times and it hasn't got time to break down and turn into compost, the bamboo leaves and the tree leaves will both be blown away. So it's a good idea to use those in the bottom carbon layers or the in-between carbon layers, right? So if you remember the sheet mulch garden, we're adding carbon, nitrogen, carbon, nitrogen, carbon, nitrogen. So every carbon layer underneath the top layer can be used with bamboo leaves or tree leaves, but I would still, if possible, keep the top layer of one of 3 things. Straw is the best with no seeds. And then also you can use compost. Compost is both a compost and a mulch. That top layer will dry out into a mulch, or mulch, right? Mulch is going to be good too. Wood chips will be fine. Yes, there's obviously a concern with nitrogen you know, which plants take the nitrogen, or do the wood chips take it? And if that's the question, we can ask it here, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You can use wood chips. So that's a great question. Okay, so we're done with the preloaded questions. I think we've just got a few questions here on Facebook Live. Or sorry, this is not Facebook Live. This is YouTube Live. So we'll take a look at those here. Okay. So the first question, I think, is more to do with these live sessions, but I'll read it. Hello, recent subscriber here. This is from Curious T ASMR. Awesome, Curious T ASMR. Welcome to the channel. I'm glad you're here, and do ask away. And the question is, very interested in learning more, but always seem to catch the lives partway in. Error of my own. Do you leave these up for some time, or once it's aired, that's it? So my plan as of today is these live Q&As on YouTube at the moment. As long as it doesn't automatically pull it out, I'm going to go ahead and leave it. And that could change, but at the moment, that's what we'll leave here. Great question. Another question here is, hey, shout out to Permaculture's farm. Those guys are great. What's up, guys? Is it Billy who's on right now? Or you can let me know in the comments. Why Permaculture's farm is letting me know. The other question is from Leah C. Where in the DFW area can I meet permaculture people and see examples of permaculture residents in an urban setting? That is a good question. So now, would you mind, Leah, would you tell me specifically, are you talking urban, like downtown Dallas, or do you mean like suburban? And I could perhaps lead you in different ways, but the first answer to that question is there on Facebook. If you're part of Facebook, there is a North Texas permaculture group, and there's a lot of people in there from the DFW Metroplex all over. And there's a wide variety of different projects at different levels. And I'm sure there'd be some folks there who would be more than happy to show you what they got going on. Or maybe they can use a hand and, hey, can I come check out your stuff and I'll help you weed your pathways or something like that, right? There's also, there's a public food forest, small food forest demonstration site. Here, I'll pull it up here on the screen so you can see where it's at. So if you go to Google and type in the Astara apartment complex, this one here on Wood Meadow Parkway in Dallas, go to maps. So here's the apartment complex. And so we've got, let's see here if I'm looking at it correctly. Yeah, okay. So you come in. There we go. So here's LBJ 635. You come in. So for people watching not from the DFW area, this is just a small little food forest area in the DFW. You'd go south on Ferguson, and then you would right here, I believe the first light, you'd go Wood Meadow. So once you get around the curve, you'll see this building here. So let me go to satellite view. So here's the building. We set out some kind of annual plants here, but this whole section right here is a food forest. And I try to go, I did go this year in May. And if you go sometime in the late spring and early summer, you'll see the vast majority of these fruit trees with fruit on them. Now they're kind of an island out there because almost nobody's growing food. So like that I've went so far and that they're food producing, we're able to grow the pomes, and this is kind of a cool thing because usually when you're growing stone fruits like peaches and plums and apples and pears, like the pomes like apples and pears, you've got 3 big infestations of insects, especially if you're in the suburbs where people have random peach tree and random apple tree and nobody's really maintaining them. Well, this, this is kind of in an area where it's not a food desert, but there's not anybody growing a garden here, and there's lots of apartment complexes. So we're able to grow, as of now, hopefully it doesn't change, with no management, stone fruits and pomes without any insect infestation, which is great. So, kind of right here, if we did the street view, let's see, how do I do street view? Oh, those are just. Oh, here we go. I think you dragged this little guy here. Okay, so that's across the street. There's the lawn next to the front. So here's the front here. You can kind of see it. So, like I had mentioned, so this photo is obviously taken in the winter or the fall. There's the front of the building harvesting rainwater. The rainwater goes underneath the street. A whole system was set up and then was vandalized. A rainwater catchment system was vandalized. So it actually worked. And I'm very grateful to have good mentors and educators myself who allowed me to, learn a design that harvests the rainwater, because almost from the get-go of this project, it didn't get irrigation management changed and nobody managed it that I'm aware of. And so this just managed itself through suburban sized swales and ground covers and appropriate selected plants. So again, this is just for looks here at the front, but I think that's one big rosemary right there. There's a small mandala and there's lots of trees here. So you'll just have to kind of see it. You can go now and check it out and check out the design. And then also, to answer your question, go back to the North Texas Permaculture. And there's a lot of people in TFW, from farmettes to urban to suburbs, who have projects going on in their own backyards. Lots changed in the last 10 years. All right. Okay, so so back to the questions. So a question from Permaculture Farms. It's Billy. What is up, Billy? Billy, I was just in North Carolina last week. It was, oh my goodness, absolutely beautiful. I was in what would be considered the country where Marshall is, Marshall and Hot Springs. I don't remember what county that is, not Harris County. It was absolutely beautiful. And it was hard to leave. But Billy, you got a question. It says, how is the house going? What lessons have you learned? That's an excellent question. The house is going well. I have learned that I've learned a lot. Let me tell you a big takeaway that I've learned, that I have had a deep conversation with in the last few weeks while I was in North Carolina. Because I went to North Carolina to brush up on some of my own skills. It's been since I've done a lot of earthen plastering. I did some lime plastering a couple years ago, but I didn't get into much earth. So point is, I went and I was getting into this conversation, and I actually, I'm a very go with the flow person. There are some things I'm kind of a stickler with, but when it comes to architecture, and here's a big takeaway, when it comes, and I teach this in the PDC, but the question is, what have I learned as a takeaway? So how important it is to manage and to be very precise on things that could potentially take life away, especially human life. So, if you want to see a loosey-goosey type person, and I am and I'm not, I mean, there are some things, but if we have a garden and we get out a line a foot or two, like no big deal, right? In the grand scheme of things, but not so much in construction. I mean, there are people going to be sleeping in a house like this. All the details should be looked over frequently and looked at in such a way that, you know, you're making sure that you're doing everything that you can to avoid a wall collapse or, you know, the roof getting blown off or something like that. This sounds like it's common sense, but let's just say you do your own project and you're getting into it and you're spending months. We're doing an earth bag building, so you're just pounding bags and, you know, you kind of just don't think about it, but think about it, right? So that's a big takeaway for me. Thanks for the question. And there's a lot more that could be said on that. And there's a part of me that wanted to kind of document everything that we were doing on the house than our YouTube channel. And I've got some videos coming out on it, but I will tell you, it's probably better that I didn't. But if you got questions more about the building, I've got a ton of pictures I could probably show you that would be worth looking at and worth asking questions on, especially when it comes to long straight walls. It's like our building, it's kind of a big box, but it's a golden ratio box, right? It's a 42 foot by 26 foot. And when I say golden ratio, well, if the permaculture design course and you knew 1 by 1.6, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. Dun, 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 mystery. Okay, great question. Thanks for asking. So here's a question from Jason Vance. Where can I look to find info on raising pigs without any experience? Well, there's a couple of places. I can give you a generalized answer, but I think you can actually look at Permapastor's farm. Are you still running pigs out there, Billy? And he's on the chat right now. And if not, I got some other resources for you, and I'll go ahead and give you those. So what are some ways that you can do this? One is go get a couple of pigs and just work it out. And pigs aren't super, they're not like bees. If you get your first hive of bees and you haven't done any research on it, you're probably going to lose them, especially in the winter. Pigs, not so much, you know, they're somewhat hardy. So that's one way, right? You just don't go get 30 pigs, get a pig or two, small ones like coonies. Or, you know, obviously watch videos on it. I want to say that there's Mr. Cliff Davis there in Tennessee has quite a bit of info on pigs. And he is Spiral Ridge Permaculture. So you can check out some of Cliff's work. He's doing some good stuff. He's been doing it for a while now, and don't quote me on anything I'm about to say, but from my understanding, he started pastured pigs and he was a permaculture farm. And then I think he went into kind of market gardening and he focused more on money. But he went that way, right? He was like anti-economics and then changed throughout. And look, I don't really know, right? This is kind of the outside. So anyhow, Spiral Ridge Permaculture in Tennessee, Cliff Davis, you can check out what he's doing. All right, so let's see here. Oh, okay, I'm just reading through these chat. So there you go, Jason. Yeah, definitely go check out what Billy's doing. You know, he would be my first recommendation there at Permapastor's farm. He's raising pigs for 21 cents a pound. I mean, come on now. All right. I'll leave it open just for a second for any last minute questions. And I think I'm going to go ahead and bring this one to an end. Let me know if you've enjoyed this live Q&A. And if you'd like to see another one next week, that's what's on the plan. I'm pretty sure it'll be Saturday, but it could be a Friday, but it probably will stay on Saturday. And let's see here. All right. All right, guys. I'm going to put a blessing on you in the name of Jesus, and I will see you next week.